welcome to Winging It with Ash. I am Ash. Welcome to my channel. I am doing a video today that I have put off for quite a long time, only because for a lot of reasons, but majority of the reasons are that I want to make sure to do it right. I also want to make sure that I can talk about the things that I'm going to talk about without getting too emotional, which means moving through a lot of it and getting to a place where I feel like I can talk about it with authority of experience. So my mom, I have asked to come here with me. So my mom is here. She's going to help me go through questions. I want to move in a way where people are being vulnerable on this channel and talking about things that are really difficult. And so I think the best way to start that is by me starting with my own experience and a difficult thing that I worked through. That being said, yeah, I guess I'll start by just kind of giving quick review for most of you. I was married for 10 years, 12 years in total. I married a man, and then I was told 10 years into my relationship that my husband at the time felt he was a woman. And I guess that's, I don't know where I can start.
Yeah. So I would say, like, we watched this process happen, and, you know, we loved her ex, we loved Ashley, but in the process, we watched both of them in that transition and how difficult that was for both of them. And so we tried to be supportive as we could. And so I'm just going to ask some questions that I think maybe might be something that you would be interested in knowing about this situation and how she has worked through that in her life.
And the goal of this is to talk about my experience and my perspective. I can't speak to my ex's experience and perspective, which is, I'm sure, very different from my own, as well as, it's just a touchy topic, but I want to talk about it. I've wanted to talk about it because I know that there are so many people who are going through this, who is a spouse or who is a family member or who is a friend of someone who is struggling with identity and trying to work out what that is. And in the time that I went through this, like when I was working through this, I didn't have a community by choice because I was moving around so often. So I didn't talk to anybody about it. I felt like I was the only one. To be honest, like when this all happened, I literally looked up on YouTube, my husband thinks he's a woman, because that's the only thing I could think of where I could potentially get someone who was going through the same experience. Now, this is a topic that is a hot topic, like a lot of people talk about it. But at the time, it wasn't. So I had no idea what it meant or what to do or how to move forward in just even learning that that was like my reality at the time. Yeah. So yeah, this is not to bash anyone. This is not to like say anything bad. I don't have hard feelings. I don't hold bitterness or resentment at all, which is a testament to forgiveness and God, I think. But I definitely want to share my story to help others. And so,
Yeah, so there might be some people who don't understand your perspective, and that's okay because this is your story, your life, what you've experienced, and how you processed through that is individual. So it doesn't mean that someone else might not work through it the same way, and you don't have negative feelings toward anybody else's way of processing through that. But this is your truth and how you have worked through it. So kind of give us a little bit of an idea of what your relationship was like with your ex before all of this. And what was your expectation of marriage?
Well, I got married super young, 3 days before my 21st birthday. And I was in love. Like, we loved each other. We were best friends. I think that, like, throughout the years, we did things like work for a missions organization, or we moved to Los Angeles. And I think that by moving or going somewhere, just the two of you, you end up being really strong or like working together pretty well. There were things in our relationship that were difficult. I think that comes with every marriage. But I loved this person. Like, I was hands down, like, willing to do anything to make it work. When I got married for forever. Like, literally no clue anything like this would happen. Like, no idea that it would be.
In saying literally, you don't know that. Did you feel like maybe you were kind of naive, or did you not see any sign of this ahead of time?
No, I don't think that I was naive. Like, I think that through watching YouTube videos, people can kind of see a transition or something different. And I think afterwards, it was very frustrating because a lot of people would say, like, we saw it coming, or it was, but I didn't see it coming because my spouse was quirky. Like, there were things that were just quirky, and that was the way that it was. Like, those were parts of those things I loved about that person. And so I just had no clue, no inkling. Like, I didn't even know what transgender meant at the time. I had to Google that. Like, when I heard the term transgender, I didn't know what that meant. So when you don't know something is a possibility, you don't expect it to ever happen.
Yeah. So you said you were married from 10 to 12 years, so 12 years, but was it the 10-year mark that you really started noticing some changes, and what were those changes, and how did that process work with the two of you?
Yeah. Well, we worked full-time together, lived full-time together, and we were traveling. We were making YouTube videos full-time together. So there were just small things that started to change. I hesitate on saying specific things because I don't know if it's a breach of, like, that person's
personal space.
Yeah, it's hard. Exactly. Yeah. Like, I really struggle with that. But my honest truth, like,
this is the hard part, is like, so you want to be able to tell your story, but you're also having to be careful of the other person. So then your story can't be 100% as true as it would be, because you're still kind of having to guard this other person, even though
I want to guard the other person.
Yeah. Well, and that's a testament to your care and love for that person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because there were things that changed, like hygiene changed. That just seemed a little stranger than, like they were things that I was like, I didn't ask you to do this. You know, as your wife, I wasn't asking you to do these things, so why are you? And it was just small things like that. So then when you notice a difference in your relationship or marriage, or some things just seem a little more secretive, or there's no explanation for it, something feels off, and then you question it. And I think that's when I started questioning, like, what was going on. Like, I thought potentially there was, like, cheating happening or something. Even though I was with this person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there was just something off. And I think that insecurity takes over, and your mind makes up whatever you can think of that would create some kind of riff or some kind of thing like that. And so I knew something was off. I would never have guessed what was off. But so we had what I think was a very good, like, communication and talking about things. And so I did ask, like, are you having an affair? Are you doing something behind my back? But I was reassured that there was nothing wrong, that it was just something that person wanted to do. That person wanted to make a change in those areas. So I think a lot of people stay in difficult situations or hard relationships, like toxic things, for longer periods of time because they just trust their spouse. They're meant to in a relationship. You just take their word for it. So that's what I did. I just took that nothing is wrong, that it's just I don't know, changes.
Yeah. So when did it get to a point where there was any kind of confrontation about it, or to where you?
No, I still didn't expect anything until, not long before Christmas. We were in Denmark, and one night, my spouse just blurted it out that he thought he was a woman. And there was no explanation of transgender or anything, because at the time, I don't think either of us knew what that would mean, what that meant in the long term, what that meant for our relationship or who we are. Even I don't think that my ex knew where they wanted to go with it. I think that it was just, I don't know. I can't speak to that person, the thoughts that they had, but for me, it was just shocking. What the heck does this mean? Is this real? That's when I had to Google it and just be what if my spouse says that they think they're a woman? What if my husband thinks he's a woman? What do I do in this situation? And for a long time, because we were very committed to each other, both of us, my spouse did not want to lose me. The intent of that person was to stay together through any of it and all of it. Mm-hmm. But it took a long time to come to the realization of what the true desires were. I think at first I thought these are just some kind of feelings, but they weren't going to be pursued. I think that was the agreement that we had come to without knowing further what that meant. How deep the feelings were or how it would progress, was the understanding that I understand you have these feelings, but the choice was not to pursue them, not to go in that direction of transitioning, transitioning into a woman, of doing those things. I didn't know that it was going to progress that far.
Because you probably thought maybe he's just a little confused. Maybe he is not 100% sure this is what he wants.
And at the beginning, it wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
But the decision of keeping it a secret, the decision of not telling anyone was out of protection of my spouse. Yeah. My spouse wanted to protect themselves as well, not knowing exactly, you don't announce something like that without knowing, having a plan. And there was no plan at that time of what it looked like moving forward.
So what went through your mind in that moment of shock? Of tell me what thoughts went through your mind. What was your response internally, and what was the first step that you made?
Well, I cried a lot. It was an awful night. We went to this. It was just a drag show that same night. Oh, okay. And I just cried in the bathroom the entire time. It was awful.
Yeah.
Because it was I don't know, it was just so strange that was what we were doing that night with some friends in Denmark. But the question of, is this what you want? Is this what you're after? For me, I was just trying to make sense of our past and where this came from and how. It was just a shock, and I didn't know what it meant, so I didn't know how to process. You don't know how to process something if it was never a thought, or you just don't even know how. Nowadays it's everywhere, so people are more understanding. It wasn't that many years ago, but my understanding of all of this was so much less than what it is now.
Yeah.
So processing it, I just continue to live my life, loving my spouse, and wanting open conversation. We both, as far as I know, we were honest with each other with how we were feeling, how we were doing, checking in. And I'd like to think that that person was also as honest with me as possible in that time, because we were best friends. We did everything together. But I can't say that it didn't change our relationship anyway, because it did. Intimacy is different in that situation.
Yeah.
like the person is still the same person, but there's a deception in that. Like I felt deceived in a lot of ways because that wasn't what when I married this person, I wasn't marrying them with this in mind.
Yeah.
But I think my immediate reaction was, okay, we're married. We're going to work through this and figure it out. But with the understanding that we were Christian and that sin is in the world, and like you would kind of deny that for, like, you're not supposed to sin.
Yeah, right.
and these topics are really touchy, and the ideas of all these things. I also really struggled with, like, unconditional love is something that we hear all the time growing up and stuff. And at that time, it was like, well, I believe that I love this person unconditionally, but now I have a condition to this love. And it's like, I married a man, and can I love this person when they choose, if they choose to transition into another person?
And so in that process, when the two of you talked, were there some boundaries that were laid down? Like, so when he started making more changes and you saw progression, what was that discussion like together?
Bringing it up and just saying, this is my boundary. You crossed a line with doing this, or like wearing women's clothing or using my makeup, or, there are things behind the scenes that happen when your spouse is, or the person you love is kind of like tampering in these things, or like trying to figure out like what feels good or what is, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it because it's hard. I don't know. All I see is what's going on, but like none of it was talked about. Like things were done without my approval. Like they were just done, and I saw them being done in front of my eyes, but I had no say towards them. Like you feel bad for shutting someone down for exploring or figuring out things for themselves because you don't want them to deny that. But also you don't agree to it. Like it's not something you want to happen.
Yeah. So tell me what that was like for you spiritually, because I know, some people don't have spiritual lives. Some people do have spiritual lives, and the way that you describe your faith, then how did that affect that, and how did you work through that in this process?
Well, I think for a long time I was mad, like, at God or my faith, because why would I have to go through this? Like, I have done everything I can to be good, to be a good person, or to whatever, like, why do bad things happen to good people was like one of the age-old questions that everybody has. And self-pity is so easy to have when you go through things like this, is like, why me and not some murderer somewhere?
Right. Yeah.
Like, why can't they deal with it? So
and you say that because like that wasn't what you signed up for. Like you signed up for a marriage with a man and thinking of having family and like just the whole like heterosexual relationship throughout your marriage.
Yeah.
So that was your view, and this turned that upside down.
100%. It ripped it to shreds because, and you have to grieve in a new relationship breaking up, you have to grieve the future that you saw with that person, the future that like you wanted to create and build together, and that you've worked towards for so many years, to get to the place that you're at. And so I think like I definitely was able, like, I didn't have a community going through it, so I trusted God and like prayed a lot, and I had to like really rely on my faith in that time. But coming out of it, there was a time of being upset as to like why I deserved this. I don't, but that's how it felt.
Yeah.
the lie that I, had to work against.
And so who did you go to during that time in processing that and working through? Because you had, how long did you kind of wait to see what's going to happen here between us? Like how long was that time frame from the time that he told you? Or
it was 2 years.
Your spouse told you, yeah.
Until we decided to get divorced was 2 years in between. So
a 2-year span of time of kind of waiting to see and then trying to work through what this is going to look like.
Mm-hmm. And my family, you guys probably didn't know until a year into me. So I didn't say anything to anybody in that time. I had no one to talk to about it. Not that I talked to you guys much about it either.
Yeah.
In that time.
You kept that absolutely to yourself for a while, and I remember calling you, and it was around Christmas time, and you guys always came during Christmas to spend time with us, and I can remember saying to you, okay, Ashley, what's going on? Because I could tell that there was a huge difference in your spouse's behavior and just there was an all-over change, but I still saw that there was love there and respect between the two of you, but something was broken, and that was when you finally told us, because you were trying to guard his feelings, or you were trying to guard your spouse's feelings and make sure that...
And people, judgment. Like, I didn't want judgment towards our relationship while we were trying to figure it out. I think I'm pretty loyal in that way.
Yeah.
In trying to protect my spouse from judgment of others, or like our relationship, judgment of our relationship. Not that you guys would judge us. And I'm sure you guys would have been supportive of us figuring things out, but it was our own choice, and I wouldn't suggest that for other people. It's hard to hold all of that while you're going through it.
Yeah, because you're walking alone. Yeah, with no support. So where did you go for help? Where did you get some comfort in the middle of it all?
Well, just to God. I had nowhere else to go. I was traveling full time. Yeah,
okay.
I just had to figure it out myself, and like my boundaries and where I was at. Like, I think that I've become a very introspective person in how my feelings are, how far I'm willing to go. And it took a long time to figure out boundaries, or like, okay, this is my stopping point. I can't go any further, and you're continuing on, and I can see that. And so we need to decide where the future is going. And it might be in opposite directions, because I can't live this way, long term specifically.
So what was that breaking point for you?
Yeah, we were in New Zealand, and it was just a hard time. But my spouse asked. Like, at the time, there was no conversation about transitioning. There was no conversation about, like, what the full spectrum of what this looked like at that time. And so my thoughts were still, I just could slowly see that things were progressing, and that what I was being told was not the actual reality of what was going to happen, or the intent of that other person. I think that it started there, but it grew. Like, the intention changed over time. And so I was asked by my spouse if I would be open to being a 2-mom family. And I think that really broke me, because I've always wanted a family. I've always wanted children. And I am not open to being a 2-mom family. By that, my spouse meant that they would transition, and I would be the other mom.
Right.
That was a true desire of my spouse at the time. But for me, that was, okay, either like, this is where my boundary is. Either I am staying with this person and giving up ever having a family, which was really hard for me. Or yeah, that was it. Like, that was the option, right? Because that person wanted to be a 2-mom family, and from that point I knew that that person wanted to transition.
Yeah.
And so it was like, yeah, or we'd not be together, really, was the other option, was that our relationship would end from there.
And for you, that meant also giving up your career.
Everything.
That the two of you had built together. It changed your travel. It changed everything. So by splitting up, it was an all-encompassing change for you.
Yeah. It was a hard decision, but it was the right decision, in my opinion. And I think that my ex was respectful in the way that there was not much transition until we decided on divorce, or until we had the divorce. I do recognize that my spouse was respectful in that way. Although there were things like voice training, themselves, so that they had a higher voice. Or like these things that they would do, they would just do them, like voice training themselves and not say anything, just talk to me in a higher pitched voice, where I realized that it was happening, but they would never recognize that it was happening.
Yeah.
So it's like I was going crazy because these things are happening around me that are like just not being talked about or being expressed, that it's happening. Or
right. So you're losing the unity in your marriage in this process, in this process, right? Because he's moving on in a direction that you're not going.
Yeah, we were.
And so the unity
we could tell that we were going opposite direction. Like, although, I think that I could have chosen to stay married to that person and continue to go through life with them, and they would have been happy.
Yeah.
So then it's hard, because ultimately I had to be the one that said, we have to get divorced. Like, I can't stay in this. And out of respect, that person agreed, I think. But yeah, it's really hard it's really hard because you feel like you're doing someone wrong when you have been wronged in a way. Like,
yeah. So I was going to ask you that, like, when it came to conversations with your ex, then how were those conversations, and did you feel guilty for not going the same direction, or did you feel like, no, this is, like, so how did you take that stance while still being respectful to that person? How did that work out for you?
Well, I hope that person sees and knows that I was that I love them through everything I did, that I was respectful and thoughtful in my reactions, and I really hope that came across. I'm sure there are times that I was hurtful because I didn't understand. Yeah. And honestly, there are a lot of things I still don't understand, and I don't think I ever will understand. I don't remember the question.
Do you want to check the phone since we're in this? One of the things that I think that we often forget in these situations is we're looking at the person who's making a transition, and we think about being compassionate towards them and empathetic towards them.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I think that it's forgotten that the other person involved is also going through one of the most difficult times in their life that they will go through, because they didn't choose this difference. They didn't choose this change, and suddenly their life is turned upside down, and they're also left in shock.
Yeah.
So
I think that, some might say, like, the person who is transgender, that was not, they didn't choose that, right? But 100% the person that is their spouse also didn't choose that. And I do feel like when I came back and we were getting divorced, I felt like no one understood me because no one was talking about the side of the parents, the siblings, the spouse that is trying to work through all of this and how to move forward.
So what about siblings and parents and all of that? How did that play out in your scenario?
I think that everyone was hurt, maybe felt deceived in a way. Like, it's hard to get full answers out of everything because not everything's explainable, or like not everybody has the same experience in it. So it's hard to explain these things. I know that if I were to go through this situation again, God forbid it never happens to me. But if I were, I would do it differently with our families. I think that it was not handled well.
And what do you mean by that? So what does that mean? What do you think you should have changed?
I don't know that I want to go into it, but I think that my spouse's family, it was not handled properly. And I had left that to that person because it was their family.
You left it up to your spouse to deal with that part, right?
Yeah, but I think I would have handled it so differently, and I think that it was
So you'd have gone to them earlier on and told them what was going on, or have them?
No. Well, I don't know, but just like it was really like a text that told them.
Oh, okay.
And that's like just not proper.
Yeah, how it was done.
Yeah. So I love them, and I know they love me, and I know that this has been very hard on them, and I think that they have not had support either. So I went through it. They went through it. The siblings have gone through a lot of it. There's a lot of brokenness, and it's still extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have a heart for those who are going through and trying to figure out boundaries for family members, or like loving family members that are going through these difficult things.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that so from our angle, when we did know what was going on, it was a shock for us too. And even though we did notice the things, and so we had already guessed that something like that was starting to take place, but we also struggled a little bit with how do we support during this time, because you were married for that long and you needed to make your own decisions, and we wanted to support you, but how do we do that?
Yeah.
And we could listen to you cry. We could, try to support you in the ways that we could. And then from our Christian background also, we had that angle too of, like maybe one person would say, well, I'd get out of it now. Another person would say, well, I would see if, prayer would help, or, whatever the situation might be. But ultimately it came down to you needed to do it your way. Yeah. And
I did. I had to work through all of it, like myself.
Yeah.
And I did. I was very introspective, like I said, and it took a long time. And I did get support from my family, which was really helpful and a really good thing to have support. I needed that at the time of my divorce. But I think definitely we need to advocate. We need to have more support for those who are also trying to figure out how to move forward, how to have boundaries, how to support themselves, and like if it's your child struggling with their identity, and how to support that. And I don't know, it's hard. Everybody is different. Nobody is going to be the same in this kind of situation. There's not a rule book or a book that like tells you how to move forward and what to do. Like it's very individualistic, I guess, in the people who are involved in it.
Yeah.
But I went through counseling. Right. Like I sought counseling when I came home. I needed to. I felt crazy. I was depressed. I was sad. there was a lot of, I was grieving the relationship I had and the future I saw, my career.
Right.
Like everything seemed to be ripped out from underneath me, even though it was a long period of time that it progressed. It's still like the reality of it seemed quick. Like,
right. I mean, it's a traumatic thing to go through, especially when it's coming out of the blue. You don't know, why this just hit your life and what to do about it, and then you have to make decisions, which it did take you time to make those decisions. But when was that ultimate decision, and how did the two of you work through that?
Well, we went to a park, I think in Sweden. We were in the Nordics, and we sat at a park and just had a conversation about divorce and what that would look like and how we would move forward from that. We ran a YouTube channel together, which was our career, and we had to figure out like what that would look like moving forward, how many months we needed to get out the content we had, and then we would go back to Washington where we both have family and support, and then move forward from there. I think we had open conversation about all of that, like realizing, I realized that it just wasn't working. Like it was just heartbreaking, because it's really hard, because when you love someone and then the things that you say are really hurtful towards them, but you want they want you to support what they're choosing and what they're wanting, and you love them and you want to do that, but it's a conflict of your belief or
even your desire,
which is it's a conflict of your desire. Then it breaks you. Like it's hard to constantly feel like you're putting that other person down when you really don't want to. And then you end up walking on eggshells around that person constantly because you're so afraid of continuously hurting them. Yeah. And I think we both felt that way. Yeah. We both knew.
Because it was two-sided. Like he felt that way and you felt like that. Yeah. And so you're at an impasse.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, saying that we both knew that, like, it wasn't an easy decision either.
Yeah.
Like it was hard. You spend a lot of time with a person and you get used to having them around or everything, but that is just, not easy.
And for you, it wasn't that it became this hateful thing. It was, we still love each other as people, but we can't make this work out because it's beyond, each of us have a desire that we're splitting two different roads here.
Yeah. And I wanted to love that person. Like, I don't know if that came across, but I wanted to love that person to the very end of the marriage. I wanted to be as sensitive and caring through the whole process and, like, listen. And and even though my desire was that, when you have that conflict, it doesn't always come across that way, like, you end up hurting each other's feelings. And that was against exactly what I was trying to do.
Right.
So it's just really hard.
Yeah. Okay, so then once the two of you decided we're splitting, and then you said you came home, you went to counseling, you ended up getting a job, and you had to move on with life. But you also said, you didn't say the word broken, you said something else, but you were broken when you came home, very broken. And you still were processing the whole thing, like as if you were still sort of in shock,
Yeah, I'm
like
sure I was still in shock.
Yeah, and that was a couple years long of shock in a sense. And I thought that you walked through it beautifully. I feel like you and watched you love him in spite of the differences and in spite of his decision making that basically turned your life upside down, because had it been your way, you would have continued to keep walking together in life. But he took a road that was not the direction that you would have wanted for yourself. So you had to stand up and you had to make boundaries.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that in all of this, you learned how to make boundaries for yourself.
Yeah.
And build those, which is going to be, for most people, is going to be a huge deal in all of this.
Yeah.
If they're going through it.
Yeah, I think that,
Did you feel bad about making those boundaries?
Yeah, of course, because they're not the same boundaries as the other person.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make those boundaries or stand up for yourself. And I'm a non-confrontational person. So setting boundaries is not that easy for me it's easy when it's easy to keep those boundaries. But when you have someone pulling against the boundaries, then you're constantly reevaluating what that boundary is and why it's there, why you put it there. And if it's ridiculous that you have this boundary, or can you move the boundary because that other person is pushing against it?
Yeah.
Your boundaries are constantly potentially moving because when it's your spouse, you guys compromise.
Right.
It's part of compromise.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think, I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah. Well, I just think, I think that when you came back, there was this loss of a dream. There was a loss of a couple of different dreams, your career and your marriage. And that was, that took you to the bottom of yourself, in a sense. And so
I feared that, because I'm a joyful person naturally, I believe that's a gift that I have.
Yeah.
And I feared that I would never get that back. There was a time where I did not have joy. And I was scared that would be the place I'd be stuck in forever.
Yeah.
That's a scary place to be when you've never experienced it before.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a process that took time, right? How long do you think that it took you before you kind of started feeling like you were coming out of that? I don't
know, maybe at least a year.
So
probably.
Yeah.
It took a while. But I had to be proactive. I had to find things that brought me joy, that I knew were things that I appreciated, going hiking. Actually, COVID came and we were stuck at home, so we ended up, spending a lot of time together with family and being surrounded by people who support me.
So not isolating.
Yeah,
don't isolate.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone, what are the don'ts? And then we'll talk about the do's. So what are the don'ts?
Yeah, isolating is a good one because, or just keeping it to yourself. In this situation, if you're going through this, if your spouse is doing similar things to what I've described, there now are resources. There now are counselors who are specifically in this area, who can speak to what you're going through. And I can promise you that a lot of the stories are very similar.
Yeah.
My story is, at this point, I don't believe my story is unique.
Yeah, one of thousands, I'm sure.
Yeah. Maybe at the time mine was unique, but now it's not. And so I do believe that there are a lot more resources for people where you don't have to go through it by yourself or feel like no one understands, because there are a lot of people that understand at this point. And I think that just evaluating your own boundaries and keeping those boundaries is so important.
Yeah.
So I would say just to know what you're willing to give up or what you're willing to compromise. And if you're not willing to compromise something, then don't.
Right. Because you don't want to lose yourself in it.
Yeah.
You don't want to become somebody you're not for the other person, because that's not really unity and individualism combined. It's becoming what the other person needs you to be, which is not healthy for yourself.
Yeah. That's a hard one. I think that was a big struggle of mine, is this my cross to bear? Because I made this marriage commitment, is my spouse moving forward to transition something that I need to commit to? Because love is commitment, right? So it was a really hard decision to get divorced, because I didn't believe divorce was an option at any point in a marriage. It's easy for me to say that my spouse could have done anything else and I would have stayed with them. I can say that, but I have no proof of it.
Right.
It just feels like
because
this
you were
is
that
the
committed.
one thing that could have broken my relationship, and it did.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the things that you're saying I said, what are the things that you don't, like, here are the things you shouldn't do. So what were those things? Because we said, what are the things you should do?
Yeah.
What are some
well,
things
should isolate yourself. Like,
yeah.
you should definitely talk to people.
Yeah.
So, and not isolate yourself. I think that open communication is really good. I think that going to counseling together is important. We didn't have that option because we were traveling full time, and I wish we would have done counseling from the very beginning. Like, it would have probably helped with communication or knowing maybe sooner the direction it was going in. But I stuck in it, for almost 2 years, just in that time trying to figure out, like, how far this is going to go.
Right.
And if it was going to go all the way, then that was where my boundary was.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's experience is different, and everybody's boundaries are going to be different. So it's hard to say what to stop it at and what not to. I do think that, like, I felt crazy, and when you start feeling crazy, like, you need to start feeling like seeing someone. Like, try to see someone before that. But I just, like, my emotions were out of whack. I wasn't able to, like, I was constantly questioning, like, where I was at and why I was feeling the way that I was feeling, upset. And I just needed a counselor to tell me I wasn't crazy, that, like, counselors see people all the time who are going through similar things. And I'm not crazy. I'm just going through something.
Right. And it's not unusual to kind of flounder back and forth. Did I make the right decision? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? And you probably went through some of that as well. But so tell me, like, so where do you feel like you are in your life now? Like, what does recovery look like? What does it look like for you now that you've come out of that?
Yeah. So do I wish that happened to me? No. I can't ever say that I wish that, like, I went through that. Have I moved forward from feeling like, why me, woe is me? Yes. Like, I really am thankful for the experience and allowing me to become the person that I am, to have the compassion or empathy in this situation for others. I never would have guessed that in our world today that this would be such a hot topic, and I would have my own personal story of going through this and be able to speak into other people's lives through my experience. I do, like, I want to see it as a superpower to be able to say, like, I am more powerful, I am more confident, I am more many things, like, than I was before because of the experience that I've gone through in this. I know more of what I want in life. I've already given up things. Like, I've gone through an experience where I've lost everything, where I've given up things. So I find less value in things that maybe a lot of people will find value in, because I recognize and realize that it could be gone tomorrow. And so I'm willing to take more chances and do bigger things than maybe most. And I feel like that allows me to live a full life.
Okay, so here's a question that's probably a tough question, is what has this done to your ability to trust, and how have you worked through trust? Because I've watched you, and that has taken time, and how are you doing with that now?
No, it's hard. Like, trusting people through their words is a really hard thing. Like, I still struggle with, in my relationship, something that I say, and it's probably unhealthy, is that, like, I know you feel this way. I know that you're saying this. Like, I know that you're saying you love me, but unless, like, there is action behind that, I can't believe it, because people have, it's really, like, I think a lot of reasons I have this, I don't know, difficulty is that, like, if you're not backing up what you say with actions, then I can't trust what you're saying is the truth. Because I've been hurt before by someone saying they would love me forever. They would want to be my husband. They want to be the father of my children. And that person took all of that away. And what they said wasn't true. Like, in the moment it was. They meant it in that moment. But then long term, it wasn't still there. And that is unhealthy, because we do change our mind, and we are allowed to change our minds.
Yeah.
And it does happen, but
Yeah.
it's hard for me to trust the words of someone when I feel like someone promised me the world and then it was taken out from underneath me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that it's a struggle of mine, and I know that it's like something that will be long term, and not only is this situation adding to it, but other relationships and things which make me even more guarded.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're working through it.
Yeah. I am in a relationship. I'm happy. I want to love. Like, it didn't stop me from wanting to love. I wondered, like, if I would ever get to the point, if I would ever get to the point where I'd be willing to give someone all of me again. But I can't help but love hard. When I love hard, and I fall hard, and I commit fully to the people that I choose to give my love to. And I can confidently say I will be a good wife. I am a good spouse or partner because of the experience I've been through, and that I stuck with that person through those things. And so when I do commit to marriage to someone, I know that I can confidently stand there and say, I will love you through anything.
So one of the questions that I probably should have asked earlier, but I'll ask it now, is that some people going through this might question, well, did I cause this person to make this choice? Was I not a good enough wife? Was I not good enough at sex? Was I not this or that? And blame themselves and question themselves. What would you say to that?
No, I mean, yeah, you will have those questions, and you will wonder if you had a part in it. But something specific to being transgender is not a reflection of you. And yeah, I struggled with that. I thought that it was a reflection of me, and I had to come to the conclusion that it's not. I did nothing. I could have done nothing more than what I had done, and to change that person's mind or to change that situation. It had nothing to do with me. And maybe through counseling, that was the conclusion I came to, or prayer, or God. I don't know, but I did feel shame a lot. I mean, there's shame. There's shame in getting divorced, but there's also shame in your spouse saying they're transgender and then changing physical things or changing everything, really. And so working through that shame and like just having to, speak against the lies and speak truth into that. And to ask people around you to do that. Like, it's important to be fed truth in those times because you're super weak. And I know that, it's easy to say bad things to yourself or like believe those bad things.
Well, I'm proud of you for putting your boundaries up and making the decision to stand up for your own life, your own faith, your own choices as a person, and what your hopes and expectations were, and not giving up on that. And for the way that you walked through it, because you have been very respectful to your ex, and you've been you were very patient, waiting for 2 years to make a decision, and giving that time to somebody who hadn't had an affair on you, or somebody who hadn't done those things. So you were giving him the chance to how will this work out, and can he is he going to continue or not continue? And that was a lot of self-sacrifice for you, and showed a lot of love and respect for him to give him that time. And then in the end, when you made the decision, you made it for both of you, not just you.
Yeah. That was hard
for both, and that was terrifying. It was relieving in some ways, right? Because you had some relief in it. Now I don't have to keep battling this, but also just tore you apart in so many ways. But you have rebuilt, and you did seek help. Like, you went to a counselor. You surrounded yourself with people who could support you. and encourage you. You still maintain a relationship with his family, or you still maintain a relationship with your ex's family.
Yeah.
And you have been very graceful through all of this. And our family is proud of you. I'm personally proud of you. And I've watched you suffer in all of this. And I've watched you grow. And I've watched you fight through, trusting again, and to get to where you are today. And now I'm proud of you for being able to speak up about it. And I hope that those people who are listening, that those that want to attack the situation and make it something it's not, we still have to go back to, this is your life and your decisions. Your spouse got to make the decisions for that person, and you get to make decisions for you.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the direction you wanted to go. So if you don't want to go that direction and it's not healthy for you, then you made the right decision for you. And again, for your faith, for who you believe you are, and for your hope in a future.
Yeah, for what I want in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of those things.
Yeah, thank you.
You're amazing. And I think you're a great example for other people. And I think that this is going to be something that is used in your life that will give other people hope.
Yeah.
And strength.
Yeah.
And that you're willing to use this as a growing experience, not just for yourself, but for other people.
Yeah. That's what I want is, to speak of these things without being a victim, without focusing on a pity party, really. This is not meant to be a pity party, but to show that it was hard and that it took a long time to move past it, but I am a story
You're
that
stronger for it at this point.
Yeah. And I refuse to let it hold me down. I want to do bigger, greater things, and I want to give other people, I want to allow other people to share their experiences and hopefully grow out of them, with the hope in seeing my story and, where I was and where I am now is totally different. I mean, I moved to a country all alone and, all of those things. I got married so young. I was with someone, since a very young age, but to have the confidence to move overseas and have those experiences that I did, I don't know that I would have ever done anything like that without, my life going the direction it did. So, well, thank you for watching. I hope that this answered some of your questions or gave you guys some clarity on some things. But also, I hope that through my experience, through my story, some of you find hope or answers to some of your questions that maybe you aren't crazy. You're just going through something and it's really hard. But that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that people like me have moved past it and through it, and that there are things that you can do that are intentional to help yourself do that, like counseling or finding support. But if you have any comments or questions, put them down below in the comments. If any of you have similar stories, or if you have a story that you want to share on my channel of how you've gone through something difficult in life, but have come through the other side and you can help people, then send me an email at wingingitwithash@gmail.com. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much to my mom for answering questions and being here with me. This touchy topic. I also just ask that you be respectful in the comments because it is a sensitive topic, and I just want to be respectful to all parties that are involved. Right. So, all right, have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.